500 Global is a VC out of San Francisco. It's about 15 years old. We recently launched an office here in Nairobi to cover Sub-Saharan Africa. That was September last year. Our primary focus right now is sustainability. So anybody building in climate, agri-tech, mobility, the built environment. If you're building in those areas, I'm very curious. Please come talk to me after. To give you context of our size, we've got about 3,000 companies in portfolio. 150 plus are unicorns. Some of them you use every day. Who in here uses Canva, for example? Canva is one of our early investments. How many of you use Grammarly? Grammarly is one of our early investments. Coinbase and several others. On the continent, we've made about 154 investments. The last investment we made in Kenya in particular was Tripoli. Have done several others as well. If we're talking about misconceptions for the industry, there's so many. I think the very first one, we don't invest in good ideas. Can I make that clear? Has everybody understood that? VCs do not invest in good ideas. That's not the point. Because first of all, it's not my money. Let me make that very clear. If I raise a $10 million fund, it is not my cash. Second misconception, I would say, that VCs themselves have a lot of money. We don't. Like I said, it's other people's money. It's this guy's money, it's KCB's money, it's her money, it's anybody else who's giving me cash for the fund. Funds are typically going to take anywhere from 2 to 3% as a management fee in order for me kind of orchestrating and developing and doing things in the fund. The third misconception I would say is that when an investor tells you no, that is not them saying that your idea is bad, right? Or that you don't have a great product, or that the market isn't necessarily there. It can be a handful of different things. One, it can be timing, right? So if you are building a product, especially right now, because we do not live in a capital or a technology constrained world, if you are building in a space that is absolutely getting destroyed by AI, timing is very important, right? In terms of who you present to and when. The second one I would say is what I mentioned earlier, which is mandate. Do you understand what that fund's thesis is? What are they actually investing in? You guys need to be as strict and diligent in doing background research on your investors as they are on you, right? So if you see an interesting fund that, yes, invests in your space, you need to go and look at their portfolio. Who have they invested in? How much money have they invested in these people? Was it just one individual check? Was it a follow-up check? Did they lead the round, right? Meaning they were the main investor and grabbed all the other investors and brought them on. How was their relationship with the founder? Remember, not all capital is good capital, right? Some guys will just give you money and they'll leave it at that. Others will give you money, they'll do commercial introductions, they'll do other investor introductions. You need to find out all those different things. The other thing I would suggest is going and talking to the founders who've been invested in by those funds themselves. Some will be willing to talk to you, some may not. But as far as I know, this ecosystem is concerned, most folks are pretty open, right? Find out from them what was their relationship like with this fund or the benefits that they got. So you should know who these people are. You should know their personality, how they deal with things, right? Have they kicked out founders from their boards before and placed in other directors? These are all things you have to find out, right? And also, investors are not your friends. So when I say investors are not your friends, they are not going to always be upfront and always open everything to you. That is your work as a founder. I know this isn't necessarily what you want to hear. I know investors are sometimes put on a pedestal like this, but we're just like you guys, right? We're also trying to do the math. We're also trying to make sure that we make a return, that we also make money, and that also this makes business sense. Now I want to talk about the other part, which is pitching and getting into the right rooms. This is a huge mistake that I typically see founders do really early. They've got that one pitch deck, and that is going to be used for whoever it is. I'm going to change my title slide to say pitch deck for so-and-so. download the PPT, the PDF, send it over email, right? Or send it over DocSend. Absolutely wrong. Your pitches aren't necessarily changing for each individual person. They change for each individual environment, the situation that you're in. So that can be your 90-second pitch that you come and do up here. That's 4 slides. That's 4 slides. And on those 4 slides, you better not have a bunch of text on them, right? Because if you've got a bunch of text on your slides and you're pitching to me, I have one of 2 decisions to make. I can either listen to you, or I can read what you put on the slide. Which one do you want me to do? Which one would you prefer me to do? You want me to listen to you, right? Right. So don't give me something to read. I can do that later. You can send that to me on email. I want to make this very, very clear. You heard me earlier say that investors are not your friends. Can we all agree on that in here?
Yeah.
Oh, we agreed on that. All right, so now that we've agreed on that, let me tell you some tea. If you are cold emailing an investor with your deck that has everything in it, your proposed patents that you're gonna go and register, your the factory that you're doing these things at, you're giving them all this information, boo-boo, you have made a huge mistake. You're in deep trouble. To assume that this investor, one, does not have other companies in their portfolio who are doing something that you're doing, a similar adjacent idea to what you're doing, or has interesting things that they could be able to take from in terms of that deck, you are absolutely crazy. We are all doing that. They're always shopping index and things like that. So when you send that deck in, especially in the beginning, I actually prefer to send an internal memo. You can do a 2-pager. Doing as simple as why now, what's changed, right? Like, why is this important? Like, it's 2026, it's January, it's Q1, like why does this matter specifically right now? Secondly, like, what is your unique advantage? Why should it be you building it or you building it versus her or her in particular? Is there any kind of unique advantage that you have towards this? Other deck that I could say then now where you can start to get a little bit more into your numbers when you're pitching now is not even necessarily one that you're going to give, but what you're going to give access to. And then the last thing I would say is, again, just before you go into, because especially at this early stage, right? You guys are trying to absorb as much knowledge as you possibly can. Absorb as much knowledge as you can, meet as many people as you can, network, get in front of investors, get in front of other founders and other talent who may join your team. You need to be picky and choosy. Founder time is incredibly, incredibly sacred, especially for all of you at this stage, right? It's super, super important that you understand that an event that you're going to, what's the outcome that I'm hoping from this event? There are these 2 people specifically who I want to meet because I want to run pilots with them in the company that they work at. And they're the person who can move the needle for me on that. Be very, very intentional and very, very, very specific, right? Understand their thesis, if there's a VC involved, understand their mandate, what's the point of this event, right?
My significant other has a startup where they're in the video game industry. They've had about 2 games out, Zitomath and Zito, did really well, and over 100k downloads. The third game it's called Riziki. They got initial funding, which was really great. It helped progress the development of the game. But then when they're trying to get more funding to complete the development, to get more music, to get, directing, they're told, oh, it's too early for you, you're too early stage. And I'm like, but it was invested in the beginning. What happened? What are we pitching differently because I've been, pitching? Like, what are we pitching differently? How can we change?
I think he needs to look at the sources of where he's invested, where he's starting to get funding from. It's not only VC funds that he can look at. He can look at other high-profile sort of game creators. He can look at some of the consoles themselves. I know this by good authority. Sony currently has a venture fund. Gaming is a huge thing for them right now. Also look for high-profile gamers. Like some of these Twitch streamers, like the money they got is crazy, right? We had a 1 billion follower summit that was in Dubai, which we were running a program called Creator Ventures. So we were allowing guys to kind of build products of the creator economy. Some of the money that some of these creators have, bro, is crazy. The guys who are ready to write $1 million, $2 million checks because they are a YouTuber, because they have the money, right? So don't only think that sources of capital have to come from me, right? And funds like mine, they can come from anywhere.
Do VCs fund post MVP and pre-revenue? And sometimes do you also fund pre-MVP?
Myself personally, as an angel, it depends. It depends. I think at that stage, I would have to know the founder or get to know the founder. At that stage, you are betting on this founder's ability to, regardless of how, pardon my French, shitty things get, they're gonna stick it out. Is this a founder, if I give you enough time and money, you're gonna figure this out, right? You've already validated the problem, you've validated your solution to some extent. You're now just kind of in that search for product market fit, system market fit, and you're trying to find and identify who your ecosystem champions are and take this thing forward. Are you capital efficient? Are you willing to de-risk as many of these things for me? And are you approaching things with that lens? Those are the things I'm probably going to look for personally as an angel. For our fund, no, unfortunately we don't. This one in particular, and it goes back to what I was saying, you want to look at mandate, you want to look at thesis, you want to look at timing, right? And then you also want to look at the rest of my portfolio, right? And see, like, do we match or do we meet any of this criteria before you come up to me? So for 500, unfortunately, no. For this particular fund that I'm doing currently right now, for Africa, do not. And I would also say, especially right now, I think 2 years ago, globally, that would have been more accepted. I think right now, not necessarily so much.